Dear Mr. Putin, at the beginning of this series, I thought that we would use philosophy to establish a shared platform of understanding where we would try and understand your grievances and maybe even seek out the plausibility of some of them, like the advancing of NATO and so on. And you would do the same for us, and that this would be a shared platform, a neutral platform using philosophy with which understanding and even peace could be established. But you have shown yourself to be a person who advances nothing but his own will. You have been what we would in philosophy call a Hobbesian tyrant, someone who's playing the game in the state of nature. And you're using power and deceit and so many other tools to do nothing but advance your own glory, your own aims, in a game where there are no compromises, there are no shared victories, where the winner takes all. So you have therefore become the sort of person who history is just fated to throw back at us, that despite all our efforts to establish and pursue world peace, and we've done pretty well in the last century since World War II, you seem to be the sort of person that history throws back at us to almost mock our efforts. It's almost as if you are the type of person whom we will always contend with every now and again, the sort of person that plunges humanity back into darkness. So this episode, I'll therefore aim not so much to achieve shared understanding, I don't think you're interested, but actually to put plainly before your eyes the futility of your own mission. And so today I will expose one or two mistakes you have made in your narrative and your argument. So the first and obvious mistake, Mr. Putin, is that you have lied to your own people, telling them that this is an operation and not a war. Now, we all know that lies are very hard to maintain, and I'm going to give you the philosophical reason why this is so. Let me introduce you to the coherence theory of truth in metaphysics. According to this theory, truth is a relational property determined not by its standing to reality, like the correspondence theory, but actually its standing in a set of already established set of truths. In tort, a statement, say the statement grass is green, as a statement, that will be true not because we've seen it or witnessed it, but because it stands in a coherent relation with other truths that we accept, like other people have seen grass and they've seen it to be true. Other things like grass carries out photosynthesis, most plants that carry out photosynthesis are green, whatever. You get the picture. And in short, I do not need to have seen grass or to know that grass is green in reality for me to accept that proposition as true. That is the coherence theory. Now, even though we prefer the correspondence theory, this theory of truth is very, very important. That's why it's such a big theory, especially in the mass information age, because it's a theory which we actually use in practical purposes almost all the time. We have, especially, with mass information being what it is, hardly any access to almost all the information that we get, no direct empirical access. We therefore determine the truth of what we believe in its standing to other bits of information that we've got. And so we actually use the coherence theory a lot more than the correspondence theory. And that is why the control of mass media is such a huge part in determining the narrative and even actions of public people, because, and you will know this too well, Mr. Putin, because, basically in controlling mass information, you are creating your own set of coherent beliefs, or that, a set of beliefs that may or may not cohere. Like, this war is not a war, it's an operation, Ukraine is ruled by Nazis, and so on. However, the reason the correspondence theory fails is not so much because it doesn't take into account reality, but it's that there is a conceptual relation between truth and reality itself, not so much between language and reality. Language has to cohere, this we agree with, but above all, it has to represent reality first. We will never sit and admit truth just because they cohere with themselves. Of course, we do this in practice a lot. But at the end of the day, we are always going to ask what's actually going on, right? The Russian people today are going to ask, They will listen to everything that you've put through your messages and your media but they will always fundamentally at the end of the day ask, what has actually happened? And the first failure, Mr. Putin, is that whether in your time or after your time, the Russian people will know what you have actually done. And this will affect your legacy. But the main mistake you have made, Mr. Putin, is to create a set of beliefs that actually contradicts reality. It is hard enough for a coherent theorist to advance his or her own system that matches reality. It's a very hard thing to do. I mean, a coherent set, we're talking about sets of tens of thousands of propositions and statements. A single truth is dependent on so many other truths. And in order to make the whole set work is just so, it's incredibly difficult. And that is why lies are so hard to maintain, not so much because they are not supported by reality, but because their credibility requires the construction of so many other lies, which themselves have to cohere still. All lies in this set of beliefs will have to cohere, and it is beyond the work of any logician, fictional writer, politician, whatever, to make it work. And that is why most politicians, that is why most philosophers advocate the coherence theory. It is the correspondence theory, truth against reality. It's just easier. We don't have to do any work. Why? Not because we dislike coherence. We use coherence all the time. But because reality, the relation between truth and coherence, is something that lies in reality itself, not so much in language. It is reality, nature, its people, its events, that is comparably more coherent than any set of propositions, statements, maxims that the most clever, rational human can ever devise. So all our theories of science, of politics, all our language, all our systems of logic, all our fictional theories, in all these things that we have made, coherence will always fail. But the mind-independent reality, reality out there, the world out there, coherence always stands. So what surprises me, Mr. Putin, is just how unrobust your set of lies is. It's almost as if you haven't tried hard enough to make it really believable. For example, there's a direct incoherence between the lie that it is a mere operation in Ukraine and not a war, and you honoring the dead of all these generals and soldiers that have died in the last almost 2 months, right? And what is surprising is that you have honored their death so publicly. Do you think the Russian people are going to look at all these deaths and all their numbers and you honoring them publicly and ask whether these types of deaths occur in any other context than in war? One general after another, you have honored publicly. Do you think that the Russian people are convinced that these deaths occur in their numbers in military operations? Of course not. They are asking, what has actually happened? Your ship has just been sunk. Oh, well, there needs to be another lie. It was a mere explosion or something like that. You're setting up traps for yourselves with every lie that you make. They are not cohering. Your lies aren't working. What about the claim that Ukraine is governed by Nazis? Do you think the Russian people actually believe this to be true, Mr. Putin? Now, I suppose that you're trying to stir up some sort of pan-Russian identity that existed between the 1940s and 90s and are tempting the Russian people to sort of buy into Ukraine being a part of this Russian identity. And the Russian people may or may not be tempted to believe this. Fine. But denazification, was this the best justification you could use for this operation? Well, the question everyone is asking is, well, who are the Nazis? What Nazi things have they done? Where are the mass graves? Where are the protests on the streets that have been suppressed by the violent Ukrainian Gestapo? Well, what are the fascist policies that Ukrainian legislation has put into law? And what rivals has Zelensky killed in order to advance his own power? Being accused of being a Nazi is a big thing, Mr. Putin. One which the Russian people, perhaps more than any other, understand too well. It is their fathers that had to face the Nazis. And they are going to want to know what is being done in Ukraine that's so Nazi. And this you cannot show. Incoherence. Worse still, worse for you. While they are asking all these questions about Ukraine, the Russian people's own reality, what they are facing, actually suggests itself as answers to these questions. Is it not we, they will ask, that who are policed by terror and violence? Is it not we who live in fear? Is it not our leader who has liquidated his rivals? Is it not our leader who has been here too long? So, Mr. Putin, your lies are not working. And already, you know just how many of your own people have opposed you, would oppose you freely if they were free to do so. Just what lies are you going to tell them about the deaths of so many of the Russian soldiers? That it's still an operation? Was it the Nazis? Maybe they're not dead at all? I shudder to think what you're actually going to tell them, Mr. Putin. And you need to remember that with every lie, you set a trap for yourself. And I think a time has now already come, actually, where your words have now become almost completely meaningless to your own people.